Hey, what you reading for?
Top 10 scariest books I have ever read. I'll be honest with you, I don't scare easy, but I do love when a book challenges me, when it provokes my imagination into a spiral of ghastly possibilities. However, in order for a book to do that, it needs to be well written. I need fluid and compelling prose to suck me in and have me suspend disbelief. And I need some form of invention. The tired tropes are never going to work on me as far as scares go, no matter how good the execution. So, in this list of 10 books I'm going to share with you, the commonality among them, I believe, is that they are all well written and they all have some form of invention or originality to some extent. And I think there's quite a decent amount of variety here. There's one book from the 1980s, one from the 90s, and the rest are more recent from the last 15 years or so. If you like horror books and content with people sharing their opinions and experiences with horror, I'm very happy that you've clicked on this video. I hope you like it, and I hope you consider subscribing. The more subscribers this channel gets, the more encouraged I am to continue and keep putting out content. So if you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button. While you're doing so, I'm going to hand things over to the great American composer John Adams for the intro sequence, and I'll see you on the other side for my top 10 scariest books I have ever read. Kicking off the list at number 10 is Dark Matter by Peter Straub. Now, this is one of those books that I didn't really enjoy while I was reading it because it is so slow. But since I read it, which was many years ago now, I often find myself thinking about it, troubled by it even. The book introduces some interesting concepts, and it left something in me. A group of friends at university, they become fascinated with a charismatic spiritual renegade, and they join him in a field for an occult ritual. Some weird stuff goes down that they can't explain, and one of the guys in the group dies during the ritual. And the other members of the group, they are all affected in various ways, some dramatically so. Decades later, one of the guys from the group, our protagonist, he is an accomplished writer, and he decides that he is going to write a book about the experience. So he and his wife, they set out to track down the others and try to have them talk about and explore what happened to them many years ago. Winner of the Bram Stoker Award for Best Horror Novel of the Year in 2010. Dark Matter is a divisive book due to its torturously slow pace, but I look back on it fondly. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on there, and scary too. At number 9, another Bram Stoker winner, this one from 2014, and that is Bloodkin by Steve Raznick-Tem. Bloodkin scared me based on its creepy premise and a badass villain. Set in a small village in Appalachia, a young girl is promised into marriage to her uncle. So as soon as she hits puberty, as soon as she has her first menstruations, she will be handed over to this man, and she's dreading it. Her uncle is the village preacher, a snake handling preacher, and he is often seen carrying with him 2 crates that are filled with all the venomous snakes that he uses for his religious ceremonies. And his skin is all puffed up and darkened and leathery because of all the snake bites he's received over the years. He's just a creepy, evil dude. Gives me the willies. In this book, there are competing POVs and competing timelines, so it is not the easiest book to follow, but there is enough in Bloodkin that worked on me, that scared me, and has stayed with me, so that it comes in at number 9. At number 8, also set in Appalachia, Brother by Anya Alborn. Here we have a brutal, grisly story devoid of any supernatural elements, so we have a more realistic, savage kind of horror. A family, husband and wife, they enjoy making their teenage sons capture young women and lock them in the basement and torture and kill them. The elder of the two sons, he is into it. The younger son, not so much. This is a violent and intense book, but it manages surprisingly to have a heart. It's a tough read, a scary read, and a good one, I think. At number 7, from Japan, released in 1994, we have Piercing by Ryu Murakami. Less horror and more of a psychological thriller. In Piercing, we have a young man who is a new father of an infant daughter, and he is battling with the urge to pierce his infant daughter's flesh with an ice pick. He determines the best thing to do is to exercise this urge to fulfill it, but not with his daughter. Instead, he decides to hire a sex worker to fulfill his dark fantasies. The sex worker he hires has issues of her own. This is a psychologically challenging book, very well written. In fact, I liked it so much that I dedicated an entire video to it. You can check out if you want to hear me go more into detail about it. For me, I found it scary in the way that it explores the psychological ripple effect certain events in our lives can have, and how we might be powerless to stop it. It's a frightening prospect and one that hit home with me. At number 6, The Lonely Lands by Ramsey Campbell. This is a book that came out last year and it surprised me. It's a compelling story that resonated with me emotionally, and it put thoughts in my head that are scary thoughts that I'm not going to be able to get out. The protagonist, John, when he was a child, his dying grandfather put a thought in his head that he has not been able to get out. His grandfather implored him to only remember the good things about him, because he was convinced that after he died, the way his loved ones remembered him, that would affect how he would be in the afterlife. Quite an intense, heavy burden to place on your loved ones, right? So when John is an adult, his wife dies and he takes on that burden once again. A very interesting premise that has deep psychological ramifications that I think the book does a good job exploring. I like this book so much that I have an entire video dedicated to it that you can check out for more about it. At number 5, I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. A couple are driving to one of their parents' home for the weekend, and one of the people in the couple, they start thinking that maybe the relationship isn't going anywhere. Maybe they should end it. We get a sense early on that something isn't quite right with these people, and then the book takes a hard turn and ventures into something I don't want to get into. I don't want any spoilers. It's not exactly a plot twist. It's more of a drastic shift in tone. And this hard tonal shift, it really worked on me, and I thought the execution was excellent. scary, and leaves you with a lot to think about. Good book. At number 4, The Ritual by Adam Neville. This is no surprise to longtime viewers of this channel. I talk about Adam Neville quite a lot here. I have a ranking of all his novels. I have a 3-part interview I did with him, and his books often come up on my top 10 lists. The Ritual is probably the most famous of his 12 novels. Not necessarily my favorite, but for me it was a 5-star read. A group of friends go hiking in the woods in Sweden. They decide to venture off the trail and take a shortcut, and that turns out to be a terrible idea. There are several elements in this book that work beautifully together to scare the reader. You have a creature in the woods, you have a cult, you have ancient things resurfacing, you have crazed ideologues. I was blown away by this book. A high recommendation for confirmed fans of horror. At number 3, The Deep by Nick Cutter. Easily the most claustrophobic book I have ever read. A man takes a submersive deep into the sea down to a research station located at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The book does an excellent job placing the reader in the setting, and the setting is one of extreme confinement. At number 2, from 1980, Off Season by Jack Ketchum. Like Brother, which I talked about earlier, here we have an example of visceral, savage horror devoid of supernatural elements. Now, between the two, Brother and Off Season, I do prefer Brother. I think I found the characters far more compelling, and it has deeper, psychologically disturbing elements to it that I like. So I prefer Brother, but as far as scares go, yeah, Off Season delivers. A group of friends rent a cabin in New England where they are attacked by a clan of inbred cannibalistic humanoids. So there is a home invasion aspect to this story, which really scares me. And in this book, there are no punches pulled, and no bites either, for that matter. Which means that coming in at number 1 as the scariest book I have ever read, and it's not close, coming as a surprise to no one who's been following this channel, The Reddening by Adam Neville. Now, The Reddening is very different from The Ritual, but like the ritual, we have a creature, we have a cult, we have ancient things resurfacing. The story is set on an island off the coast of Devon, England, where an archaeological discovery is made. And the people who investigate this discovery, they end up really wishing they hadn't. As a longtime horror fan, this book was a game changer for me when I read it back in 2019, because I had started becoming disillusioned with the horror genre, to be honest with you. I felt that it had veered too heavily into pop horror and horror that was cute or fun, and I want horror that is challenging. And I just didn't think that kind of horror was still being made. But then I read The Reddening, and yeah, I was proven incorrect on that assumption. There is still challenging horror being put out, but you kind of have to dig for it a little bit more. So there you have it, my list of the 10 scariest books I have ever read. Do you have any experience with the books or the authors I talked about in this video? What are some of the scariest books you have ever read? I always love connecting with you in the comment section. So thank you for watching, for liking and subscribing. and I will see you at the next video.
Roger, I had a very disturbing dream last night. In this dream, I found myself making love to a strange man. Only I'm having trouble, you see, because he's old and dying. And he smells bad, and I find him repulsive. But then he tells me that everything is erotic, that everything is sexual. You know what I mean? He tells me that even old flesh is erotic flesh. That disease is the love of two alien kinds of creatures for each other. That even dying is an act of eroticism. That talking is sexual. That breathing is sexual. That even to physically exist is sexual. And I believe him, and we make love beautiful.